Aloha and welcome to the Sylvan Bell Business Growth and Exit Strategy Podcast, your guide to building companies that command maximum multiples. I'm Sylvan Bell, author of 5 books on business strategy and sales, creator of the Sell Framework, Scale Framework, and Driver Test. I work with owners of $10 million to $250 million companies, whether you're scaling for growth or positioning for a profitable exit. Each episode breaks down one framework, strategy, or concept you can apply this week to grow revenue systematically, scale operations, and maximize enterprise value. Let's get started. What makes a business truly sellable? And I want you to think about this question and ask yourself, is my business truly sellable? Most businesses are not sellable because they're built like jobs, not like an asset. So if you're going to sell your company in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you really want to consider, how do I build an asset that somebody wants to invest in and purchase, instead of just buy something and then you end up with a discount and you didn't get all the money that you could. So we're going to define sellability. And we want to look from the lens or the view of the buyer or the investor. And what they're looking for is something that's turnkey. What they're looking for is something that's predictable. What they're looking for is something that they can walk right into and they could take it off your hands, and you're going to have light interaction. They might have some questions about some purchases. They might have some questions about employees, but at the end of the day, you can walk away almost free and clear, and they could call you maybe once or twice a week if they've got questions or you need to do a true up and settle some books. The core test, hands down, is transferability. How easy is it for the new owner, the new investor, the new PE firm to take over the company? This is the pass or fail filter. And if you're saying, hey, Scott, how do I know? How do I know that I'm going to get the maximum multiple for my business upon exit? Is everything in that business transferable? Is the knowledge transferable? Are the standard operating procedures transferable? Are the actions, are the sales transferable? Are the people who are clients going to come back? When we talk about transferability, we're talking everything. And when you take a look at it, it's if you're saying, hey, I need to know, do I have a business or do I have job distinction? What you need to know is, if the owner has to be present, it's not a business in the buyer's eyes. It's a job. And what happens is there's a risk score that investors use, whether it's a PE firm, whether it's a group of investors or a private investor. They're looking and they're saying, okay, I want your business, XYZ company. I want ABC company. But what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to find an operator. And depending upon how much chaos is inside of the business, how many problems need to be solved, then what they do is they go, well, normally this job would pay $100,000 to $120,000. We're going to have to budget for $200,000 or $150,000 to bring in somebody to rein in all of these problems and all these issues. Do all of them do it that way? No, but this is the way that you look at it. Like, okay, I'm going to have to budget for solving problems. I'm going to have to budget for bringing people in. And sometimes what will happen is a conversation will happen with a business owner. A conversation will happen with an entrepreneur and ask, like, how much do you pay the people who run your company? And sometimes they pay them peanuts because they were banking all the money. They wanted to keep as much profit as they could. They could have gotten better talent. That talent could run the company without them. Sometimes they just don't see it. Now, this is a personal decision. I'm not telling you have to, but it is something to think about. Like, if I have somebody who is $100,000 and that's what the market says based upon Glassdoor or based upon salary.com, what could I get for 150? What could I get for 200? And where could that person take me? Like, when investors start hearing, hey, I invested in talent, and they go, oh yeah, tell me more. Well, normally this position, ... normally this group of people, ... And then investors like, okay, you get this. You understand the transferability to make a business truly sellable. What you want to do is you want to play a little bit of a game. What works when I'm gone? What works when I'm in-house? And you take some time. This is a strategy session. You could go department by department. Hey, if I were to leave for a day, what happens? If I were to leave for a week, what happens? If I were to leave for a month, what happens? If I were to leave for 3 months, what happens? The month mark is what a lot of investors take a look at if you could get to 3 or 6 months and that company's running and it's running on all cylinders, that's something to be like, hey, I want maximum multiple for what I'm selling here. What you're going to find is the baseline operational systems make performance repeatable. That's what you're looking for, repeated performance. You're looking for predictability. Predictability is going to come up a lot in many of the episodes. Predictability is a conversation that needs to happen more often. One of the things to ask your management team is, okay, how do we make this department more predictable? And what you're going to find sometimes is there's a person that they kind of are on the bus. They're kind of engaged. They kind of want to be there. They kind of want it, but they're not fully engaged. And so they hold back the team, and the team looks and they're like, well, that person's not doing their job. We don't have to either. And then so all of them are like, we're kind of, you have to demand excellence. And what you're going to find is a baseline operational system. And if with repeatable performance means that you're going to look at numbers, that you're going to look at KPIs. You're going to look under the rocks, and you're going to have tough conversations. And occasionally people are going to have to be asked to let go. And that is an HR decision. So talk to an attorney or HR, because I'm not either one of those. Quick break and message from your sponsor, Sylvan Bell. That's me. If you're getting value from this episode, here's how to go deeper. First, subscribe to my weekly newsletter, The Party, at scottsylvanbell.com. That's where I share the strategies, frameworks, and case studies I don't release anywhere else. You'll get one actionable insight every week you can implement inside your business immediately. Second, while you're on the site, download the complete Sell Framework, Scale Framework, and Drivers Test, all free with scoring guides, worksheets, and step-by-step implementation checklist. These are the same frameworks I use with $10 million to $250 million companies to build systematic revenue, scale operations, and maximize enterprise value. Go to scottsylvanbell.com right now, subscribe to the newsletter, grab the frameworks, and let's keep building companies that command maximum multiples. Let's get going. What buyers and investors really want to see is day-to-day execution. What are the roles? What's the workflows? What's the cadence? And you don't have to go to crazy town. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. You could use a whiteboard. You could use sticky notes. You could use index cards. You could use mapping software. Like, the sky is the limit. And I was a coach for salespeople. I was a corporate trainer for 10 years, and I have this belief. If you're going to look for an objection, you're going to find 5 or 10 of them. And so, like, a lot of people say, hey, well, Scott, I'm looking for the perfect opportunity. You just don't get it. You can map out a standard operating procedure for a job by talking into a voice recorder and then taking it to something like Otter AI and then dropping it into Grok, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Manus, whatever happens to be the favorite version of AI these days for an AI engine, and say, help me map out this standard operating procedure. And what would make it more efficient? What are we missing? And if you could do this like 5 times, what you're going to find is there's magic that happens. You're going to pick up on, okay, there's nuances here. And then you test it. You take that standard operating procedure and you take a look at it, and it's like making a recipe. And you're looking at a cookbook. And you open it up and you're like, I'm going to make chocolate chip cookies. What's step number 1? Open the cookbook. Step number 2, go to the refrigerator. Step number 3, get out eggs. There's nothing wrong with being very specific and saying, hey, here's all the things that's going to make it happen. And one of the reasons why this becomes so important is if somebody leaves, if somebody's get asked to leave, or an accident happens and somebody can't be in the building anymore, or they're no longer around. When you're talking about transferability, one of the easiest things to talk about is processes, workflows, standard operating procedures. Where you're going to find that owners overestimate sellability is the informal systems, the key man risk, the unclear reporting. When I do consulting, when I go into a business, one of the things that we do is we put a meeting cadence in place. And that meeting cadence is very specific. What that meeting cadence does is it takes away clean enough. It takes away good enough. It takes away vague answers. And what you'll find is you could do a meeting every day for a couple of minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and then do a big meeting during the week. That's what I refer to as the big meeting. Typically do those on Wednesdays because there's time to catch up and like, where are we in production? And then once a month, you can have an all hands on deck management meeting where you go over new strategies, new policies, new procedures, new ideas to roll out. And what you're going to find is you want those meetings scripted. you want the same thing to be predictable, right? Predictable. You want the same thing to happen over and over and over again, so everybody knows their role. There's a famous wrestler, The Rock, and he used to say, know your role. Well, the same thing's true about your meetings. If you're looking for predictability, you want everybody to know those numbers. And one of the things that I'm a huge fan of is if your meeting's going to be at 9, all numbers have to be in either the day before or by 8 o'clock. Because then everybody's ready to explain, like, okay, we're going to get called to the carpet. How come your numbers aren't in line? They stick around for after the meeting and we're going to get this fixed. It's easier to turn a ship like as soon as you see something happen instead of a month later. And when I go in and I do consulting gigs, one of the first things that we take a look at is like, what gets reported out? What's the meeting cadence? What is reported? What are the conversations that are consistently happening? Where is AR? You work with me, one of the top conversations we're going to have is like, what's the SOPs? What are the standards and where are we at with AR? And there's a reason for it, because you're paying attention to the money. There was a company that I consulted and they were doing, I'm going to give you random numbers. They were doing $10 million a year in rev, and they were $5 million out on AR. I mean, that 50% number is where they were at. They weren't doing 10 and it wasn't 5. It was a different number. I'm keeping it vague for confidentiality reasons. But when you start talking and you're like, hey, Scott, I really want to know what makes my company truly sellable, is to be able to go and predict and say, hey, my AR, we're at 12% AR. We're like, whatever your revenue number happens to be versus what AR is, and you're able to get a ratio, or you're able to, that ability to predict and say with certainty, I can tell you AR is going to be 50 grand this month. AR is going to be 100 grand this month. We consistently close at about we consistently close at a 45% closing rate. We have a 98% uptime. Whatever metric or key metric you're going to take a look at that's valuable to your business, all of these things matter. What you're really looking for is transferability, management depth, client continuity, and financial clarity checkpoints, as I just shared with you. Going through and saying, hey, where are we at with this and what's going on, gives you the ability to, with certainty, talk to an investor and say, I can show you the books, I can explain the business, we can have a conversation, we can talk about what needs to be done, and here's my prediction. Like if I walk away for 3 months, here's what's going to happen. If I walk away for a month, here's what's going to happen. Those are the things that investors want to take a look at. So pick one constraint this quarter, engineer it out. Sellability is built and not declared. Mahalo for listening to the Scott Sylvan Bell Business Growth and Exit Strategy podcast. Here's what's available to you right now. First, subscribe to this podcast so you get every framework we release. Second, visit scottsylvanbell.com to access the Sell Framework, Scale Framework, and Driver Test. All free with complete scoring guides and implementation worksheets. Third, subscribe to my weekly newsletter, The Party, where I break down strategies and frameworks you won't find anywhere else with one actionable insight every week. Go to scottsylvanbell.com and enter your email. And if this episode added value, share it with another business owner building a $10 million to $250 million company. Until next time, keep building companies that command maximum multiples. Aloha.